Okay, cool. So we are on today for our very first community call. I'm super excited. I guess Linea, we launched exactly 1 week ago, March 28th. So I think all of us were woken up in like the big AM to launch it on time for everybody. But just to get started, I'll introduce myself. Hi, I'm Emily. I'm the developer advocate for Linea. And today we have some really cool, smart people here to talk about kind of our journey to launch what Linea is, and kind of the community and future of it moving forward. So just to do a brief introduction, we have a few guests on here today. I'll have you actually introduce yourselves during your portion of the call. But if you just want to say like a hi, my name is, we'll go around, starting with Shane.
Hey everyone, my name is Shane Fontaine. I'm with Hot Protocol, and we've been working with Linea for a while now, and so happy to be here.
Cool. JT. I'll just
Hey,
say your names for you.
I'm JT Rose. I lead marketing for Linea, among other things, at ConsenSys. Happy to be here.
Cool. And then Declan.
Hello, I'm Declan, leading product for Linea.
I'm the last one. So, hello, I'm Nicola, and I'm leading the Linea team.
Okay, cool. And then our biggest boss, Joe, will be on later to introduce himself. But yeah, so for the rest of you, except for Declan, I'm going to go ahead and kick all of you guys off screen so we can have the real star of the show join. So actually, I forgot to do this. I want to kind of share this slide first before we start. So in case you forgot everyone's names, this is kind of our overview of what we're going over today. I hope I got all of your titles correctly. We are in section 2. This is where Declan comes in. But I just want to do a quick celebration of some really cool stats that I pulled this morning. So public testnet opened March 28th. So 1 week open to the public. We're at 2.7 million transactions. We had some time in private testnet that contributed, I think, like 1.5, and then we hit, and then it's like million plus in a week. So that's insane. Our Discord channel is like blowing up. But anyways, a lot of wallet addresses. We have a lot of deployed contracts. Super excited to see all that action. And of course, we're getting a lot of Twitter love. So with that, we're going to take it back. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen and bring on Declan. So I said I would give you more time to introduce yourself. Your call if you want to say anything more. Otherwise, we can go ahead and just hop into questions.
I think we should get into the juicy stuff. So
Cool. So, let's start off with the basics, right? What is Linea?
Okay, so what is Linea? In a nutshell, Linea is a layer 2 ZK EVM rollup, which is quite a mouthful, so I'll unpack that in a second. What does it aim to do? It aims to scale Ethereum, and in doing so, will unlock the collaborative power of communities. So that's the goal, that's the mission here. But a ZK EVM rollup can kind of unpack it into like three categories. So the first is rollup. The second is that we use zero knowledge, and then the third is that it's a ZK EVM. So I'll kind of go through each individually, and hopefully that will give people a good understanding of like what Linea is and why it's so important for Ethereum as well. So taking a big step back, like monolithic layer 1 blockchains that are decentralized, secure Ethereum, they do not scale. So one of the reasons for this is that a monolithic blockchain tries to do too many things. Okay, so tries to optimize for consensus, so ordering the transactions. It does data availability as well, making sure that data is available to recreate the state. But it also does execution as well. And ultimately, this doesn't work. Like we've seen, this doesn't work. There's a throughput limit on Ethereum. Every full node on the blockchain has to re-execute the set of transactions. So the best solution we could think of as an industry was to outsource the execution to a separate layer, which is where the whole like layer 2 part comes in, also known as a rollup. So in a rollup can focus on doing this execution step really, really well. And it does this by batching transactions or rolling them up together, compressing them, and then sending a record of this to the layer 1 to actually then inherit that security and decentralization of Ethereum, for example. Now, the problem with doing this, with executing transactions off-chain, is how do we know the record posted to Ethereum is valid? We don't really. So we actually needed to design a mechanism to validate that the roll-up state posted to the L1 is actually what happened on the roll-up. Okay, so we need a way to verify that the off-chain system isn't being malicious or even just faulty. And that's where the ZK comes in, the zero knowledge. So zero knowledge rollup is able to prove the integrity of that off-chain computation and the validity of a batch by simply just providing a cryptographic proof to a smart contract on layer one. And I would say there are like two major benefits to using ZK in a rollup system. The first is the security assumption. So zero knowledge rollup relies on just one party to operate the prover and generate a proof. The rest is just cryptography and maths, which is a far better set of trust assumptions than any other scaling solution we've come up with today. The second is that it has an amazing user experience for cross-chain as well. So as soon as your proof is verified on Ethereum, the rollup batch is final, and then any side effects such as bridging assets cross-chain can be trustlessly executed. I'm sure Shane can get into that later, as bridging is very important. So this means withdrawals can happen in minutes and eventually seconds, even for NFTs. Atomic cross-chain messaging in a multi-chain system as well becomes super efficient. So ZK is super amazing and important for rollups. And then third, we have the ZK EVM. So hopefully everyone knows what the EVM is. With Ethereum, the EVM is the winning standard for smart contract execution in crypto. So it's achieved significant developer adoption. There are many tools, dApps, services that have been built around the EVM. So really, a ZK EVM allows us to, what I say, surf the wave of infrastructure network effects of that system. Now, with a ZK EVM, there are different types. Linea aims to be a type 2 ZK EVM, and if you haven't read Vitalik's post on the different types, I'd recommend checking it out. But what does that really mean? Well, it means that we're aiming to be an EVM equivalent ZK EVM, which is 100% compatible with the Ethereum JSON RPC interface. So if you're a developer, you'll know what this means, but like all of your tooling and infrastructure just works exactly the same as if you were using Ethereum itself. So if you've already built a dApp on an EVM chain, Ethereum, or another EVM chain, you can port it over seamlessly without needing to rewrite any code or re-audit your code, which is a big challenge. So what we get is we get low to zero switching costs. You can instantly just make use of that L2 scalability I was talking about earlier. And another additional benefit of being a type 2 is that you can, because we follow the EVM standard, which is an open standard and ecosystem, you can just easily opt out should you choose to. Like there's no vendor lock-in. It's great for decentralization, and this is like truly important to our mission. So that is how we get to a ZK EVM rollup, and that's what Linea is.
Awesome. I love how you started that with like in a nutshell, and then that was a big nut.
It's a big nut.
That was a big nutshell. But yeah, okay, awesome. So hopefully we have a good kind of overview of Linea. This is a very popular question I think we get all the time, especially kind of with all these L2s coming out and the ZK EVM wars. Declan, how do we differentiate ourselves?
But yeah, so I kind of mentioned briefly around how Linea differentiates itself on the technology side from other types of rollup. So zero knowledge is the choice of technology that we have. This is very different to, say, an optimistic rollup. But also we have the type system as well. So I mentioned we are a type 2. This is different than, say, a type 4 ZK EVM, which is what we call language compatible. Basically, what it comes down to the sort of underlying technical architecture. So for a type 2, we use the same compiler as Ethereum to compile Solidity bytecode and then actually prove that bytecode in circuit. So there's no intermediate representation, there's no mapping under the hood that actually, we actually prove the bytecode without alteration. And like, while this is, definitely harder to achieve than the approach the other teams or projects took, due to the fact that the EVM was never designed to be proven in a zero knowledge circuit, it means we have, absolute solidarity with the EVM spec for the prover. So the Ethereum protocol is far from ossified. As it continues to evolve, it'll make managing changes extremely easy for Linea, which was only achievable due to the amazing ConsenSys R&D team, no strangers to hard challenges, helping to deliver the merge, incubating Ethereum public goods like Besu and Teku. So we have this amazing Type 2 ZK EVM, but then also another key benefit is actually the amazing thing is we have this integration with all the other ConsenSys products as well, and there's the full end-to-end experience that offers. So it's not just about having an amazing smart contract execution platform, but the full flow users and developers go through, and specifically as an example with the Linea testnet, the public testnet we just launched, users will find that the testnet is already configured inside their MetaMask wallets. This makes the user experience really easy and really safe. So focusing on scalability and user experience at the same time.
Cool. No, that was a really great answer. I think I wanted to add some color too, because I get this question quite a bit. Like, how do I choose a rollup, right? So there's a few different kind of vectors we want to think about. And I think especially when you mention kind of the type 2 versus type 4 ZK EVMs, it's almost like taking a bet, right? I think to my understanding, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that's why I have you here, is to basically tell me when I'm wrong so I can learn in public. But type 2 ZK EVMs, you could kind of say, is a bet on the network effects of Ethereum, right? So all of your tools transfer over immediately. It's seamless, no changes. Whereas a type 4 ZK EVM, for example, does make some changes. Your tools don't necessarily port over immediately, but they're making a bet that EVM inherently is not great for ZK circuits, right? So they're like, okay, we're going to change it. Is that correct? Or am I spreading misinformation?
Yeah, I think that's pretty much accurate. There's two things there. I think with the ZK EVM, it's a bet on the continuation of the sort of the standardization and success of the EVM. Some other teams have decided to go a different approach, which moves away from the EVM, and I think that's really valuable as well. It's almost like complementary, because if we can come up with new use cases that the EVM can't do, then that will also help ultimately crypto, which helps the mission. So I think there's kind of two different bets there. The one sort of dichotomy that a lot of people mention, which I think is quite false, is that if you go for a type 2 and you have this EVM equivalence and stick with the EVM, you won't get the performance of a non-EVM virtual machine, which in our experience we think that's false. We think that we can get good enough performances with proving EVM bytecode in circuit as well. So that's a common misrepresentation that I hear.
Okay, awesome. Thank you for correcting my misrepresentation. I will go tell everyone I was wrong. And I think the second piece to choosing kind of the rollup you build on, right, is, I guess, liquidity and volume. So you want to go where the users are. So to that point, I think living in the ecosystem of ConsenSys, that default network in MetaMask is one of the strongest selling points. Like, outside of the tech fanboys, I think my grandma would love to use Linea probably over any other ad network manually kind of wallet. But yes, okay, cool. Moving on, I kind of want to talk about, Nicola will dive into more of the history of Linea, but kind of a more recent history of Linea. We just came out of private beta. We are out and proud in our public testnet for everyone to come and play around with. Can you tell us a little bit about that journey? What were challenges encountered during private beta? How do we say thank you to all of our testers who helped us get where we are now?
Yeah, so the private beta started in January the 9th, and finished March the 28th, right? So a few months of testing, which is amazing. I guess I can talk a little bit about the sort of different challenges that we faced there and some of the amazing wins as well. I'd say on the challenges side, there's two that I can think of. One is the fact that this is really cutting edge technology, and that has its own challenges in terms of building a functional system. We wanted to make sure the system was extremely secure and stable for our users, which is why it was a private beta. We didn't want it to be permission, but we wanted to make sure users were safe. So that was definitely one of the sort of key challenges that we faced. We also had so much interest actually that that we'd have people bridging from Go Early to Linea, which was ConsenSys ZK EVM at the time, before they'd even been like whitelisted. And that was an interesting challenge that we faced. I mean, it was people basically knocking on the door saying, let me in, and we were able to sort of scale with that, but it was an interesting challenge. And then the second big challenge was around the sort of issues of Go Early. So we actually, from day one, were sending validity proofs, CK proofs to Go Early to settle transactions at a pretty fast rate. And so then there's sort of the issues we've had recently with the Go Early that caused a few like minor challenges, but nothing that we couldn't deal with. So that was another interesting thing we had to face that we did not expect. But on the sort of positive side, and there was lots of positives, the activity was immense. It was crazy. I think I can't remember exactly how many transactions we finished with, but it was in the hundreds of thousands, maybe even 1 million.
We passed 1 million for sure. Yeah, 100%.
We definitely have now. Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think like you showed now, it's nearly 3 million transactions, which is amazing. I think it's just going like exponential since we opened things up. It's now around like 150k transactions per day, which is great. We're under more adversarial conditions, which is setting us up nicely for the next phase as well. But the other amazing thing to hear, especially from a product perspective, was the feedback from developers and partners who were integrating with the platform. I didn't appreciate how easy it would be just to like change my endpoint and sort of like deploy. It was just, the feedback was incredible. So that gave us a lot of confidence to then open it up to the next stage in the public testnet. And also on the operation side as well, there were no major issues. There was no downtime. We had the support from Infura and other ConsenSys teams. ConsenSys has a reputation for being extremely secure and reliable, and I think we showed that with the private testnet. So yeah, lots of great wins.
Awesome. Yeah, I think one big win is for history, because people care about my past. I do some developer advocacy for Truffle, right? And so when I switched over to the Linea team and I was helping to build tutorials, I was like, oh God, I hope I don't have to learn anything new. And like, beautiful. I didn't have to develop any new skills to start building on Linea, and that's great for someone who's, I guess, no, I love to learn. What am I saying? Let's just end that conversation here. But yeah, I guess, one last question that I have for you. You are our product manager. What can our community kind of get excited about or expect to see down the line in terms of our roadmap?
Yeah, so the best way to think about this is probably in sort of three chunks, although they're not necessarily sequential. It's a bit parallel, but like in the short term, we have a strong focus on getting to mainnet. To do that, we want to have a really secure system. We want to make sure it's functional. It's has all of the right sort of guardrails in place that our users would expect from ConsenSys. So there will be audits, there will be updates to the specification for the automatization. We'll have bug bounties. There'll be open sourcing of the code as well. And that's all going to go in preparation for our mainnet launch later this year. So that's the short term. That's super exciting, and there's a bunch of stuff that will help users to kind of test and engage with the testnet before that as well, which will help us to further make sure the system is ready for the mainnet moment. But beyond that, there's a bunch of exciting stuff, and it's kind of broken down. We want to be a trustless, decentralized, censorship-resistant, and cheap execution platform. So that means having 100% EVM coverage, all the pre-compiles, which will make us a type 2 ZK EVM, like I was discussing earlier. We have amazing teams in ConsenSys like Ganak who are going to help us do that. Decentralization of key components, the sequencer, approver, relayer, making sure that people can include transactions via the L1 in case there's any issue with the sequencer, and also making sure that it's cheap. So optimizations on the prover, ways to aggregate proofs as well, data compression, having a universal trusted setup. There's a bunch of really, really exciting things that I probably don't have enough time to get into today, but that sort of next phase is extremely exciting. And in the long term, which is, long term is a little bit further out, but that's also, going to be a huge paradigm shift. We're talking about having proven performances where we can prove, 15 million units of gas in under 12 seconds. What this gets into is actually then moving up and down the layers potentially. So you can imagine like becoming what we call like a type 1 ZK EVM, which would be Ethereum equivalent, could be enshrined into Ethereum itself, which is really interesting idea. Lots of discussions on that recently. And then even having like layer 3 recursive rollups as well, as like a future idea, right? That we could then have teams scale infinitely by storing data off chain, slightly, different trust assumptions, can even have customization like privacy. So all of this is possible in the long term. But the short-term focus is definitely on mainnet and having a secure system for our users.
Okay. Very exciting. I'm glad you're here to share all of that. I'm going to let you go. For those of you who don't know, Declan has been so nice and is joining us from Singapore. So this is his beautiful midnight face. And I'll let you go. We'll leave questions for the end about Linea. But thank you so much for joining. I will bring on our head of R&D next. Okay, bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Okay. Oh, whoops. I also brought you on, Shane. Nope, this is the wrong person. Okay, there we go. Nice. Before we get into the section, I did notice in the comments, Crowdcast is experiencing a bit of a lag. We'll leave it streaming there, but if you want to participate in live chat and ask questions and stuff like that, please find us on YouTube, Linea Build. We are also streaming to LinkedIn for all of our Web2 lovers out there. So that's just, I think, also Linea Build on LinkedIn. But anyways, yes. Okay. Hi, Nicholas. Can you please introduce yourself again? Okay, cool. Your audio is out.
It's better now, I guess. Yeah. So I used to be head of R&D, and I'm now leading this Linea team, which is quite linked to basically Linea history. So I started to work at ConsenSys to work on Ethereum 2, sharding, proof of stake, and then we moved to rollups as the solution for scalability, and then we created these units. So that's what I'm doing right now.
Okay, very cool. So I actually don't have a set of guided questions for you because I strongly believe in your ability to execute. So I brought you on here to just talk about kind of the history of Linea. Where were we? How did we get here?
So we got there really because Ethereum 2 was about scaling Ethereum, and many solutions were looked at, and we were working as a research team. What are the different solutions? And so in 2019, so quite a while ago, we saw rollups as the best solution. And back then, what we do now with rollups, which is executing EVM instructions, looked like absolutely impossible to do. So we worked initially on specialized rollups, like can we do payments in a very efficient way? Can we do anonymous payments in a very efficient way? So that's what we started to do. We actually published the first rollup for anonymous payments. And then step by step, we arrived to this, okay, but actually can we do execution? And to get there, it took actually multiple stages. So first, for example, when you want to do anonymous payment at scale, you need to go very deep in the zero knowledge technology. So for example, we introduced an ID that we reuse the kind of for rollup. It's a specific protocol called GKR that we put inside a snark, the Gross 16. And the idea of this type of stuff is you're going to have very specialized problems and you're going to use very specialized schemes. And you don't invent a scheme when you do this because GKR was done by Goldwasser, who got the Turing Prize in 2012. So it's not yourself who inventing a scheme. You're not finding strange ideas that nobody wants to use. You're taking some very well-known stuff, but you use it inside a different context. Here, a Gross 16 snark that you're going to put as a proof for payment execution. So that's what we are doing on. And that started in 2019. And if you fast forward, you arrive 2 years ago and last year. I mean, you're at a point where the merge is delivered. So thanks actually as well to work from R&D, typically Michael Kalinin, so we had huge contributions. Ethereum has now one rollup-centric roadmap. So in 2019, where we were pushing for rollups for execution, it was a little bit a lonely work. And then it started to be the absolute, everybody agreed on that. So we started to work on execution, which is, let's not do just specialized rollups, not payments only anymore, but let's try to do execution. So it's something that we started actually in 2021, in July 2021, okay, let's look how to execute EVM instructions with a proof of execution. And when you want to do that, you need to solve two problems. You need to solve the arithmetization, which is how to transform an execution in something that you can prove. And you need to prove it. Then you need to do the prover part. So there are two different problems, and both problems are very complicated. Nearly to our surprise, it was possible to solve the two problems. For the arithmetization, the complexity comes from the Ethereum specification. I mean, the EVM instructions were done in a time where the ZK knowledge stuff was not exactly a topic. So it adds a lot of complexity, but you need to build something at the end that is simple. So you have something that is complicated, and you need to have something that is simple at the end. If not, you will have bugs all over the place. It won't be secure. So you really need to have something simple. And we've been able to sort this out first by checking actually, even if it's complicated, it's doable. And this complexity can be managed, and it's a very standard software engineering solution, by dividing the problem in sub-problems, all of them in different modules. So that's how it was done, and we published the specification, the first version of the specification in December 2021. For the prover itself, the prover has a simple problem. It's how to be fast. That's simple. And what we did a little bit the same story as what we did for GKR, because we said, okay, we have standard solutions like Plonk and so on. But can we do something faster? And it came with this idea of using lattices. And lattices are well known in cryptography. I mean, they are all used all over the place around post-quantum cryptography for signatures, for example. But nobody has thought about using them inside the smart context. And that's what we tried to do. And it worked well. And at this point, we had a good arithmetization that we think that we can manage, and a prover that can be fast. So that's good from a research point of view. So you can stop there and say, okay, I mean, it's with our research team, I mean, here it is. And we actually published the paper, the specification, everything was published. But as well, it's quite clear that this is very important for Ethereum. And not having us building it in a way, it would be sad, we would have been disappointed not to build it. But having as well not ConsenSys participating in this would have been kind of sad, because the main logic of this stuff is you want to have multiple implementations. So there will be a kind of competition to get the best implementation. But as well, anyway, you want to have a choice. So that's kind of simple from a technical point of view. So why doing this? From a ConsenSys point of view, from a business point of view, we can say, okay, if it's good for Ethereum, it's good for ConsenSys. So that's a good reason for us to build it. But as well, I do believe that even if, yes, with rollups, the fees will be very low. So maybe it's a complicated business, but actually there will be a lot of volumes. I mean, just taking the existing users, a lot of people where the fees are not using the system because the fees are too high, so we make it available to them. There are a lot of existing use cases that should go to the layer 2, like we should basically, our mission is to make FTX impossible anymore, because all the decentralized exchange will be the only valid exchanges in the world. There's no reason to have a centralized one. So that's an existing use case, and that you can think about building on such a layer 2, where the transaction fees are low. But as well, we hope that we will have a lot of new use cases with this idea that, okay, guys, now you have low transaction prices, and as well, we would like that, and we'll get there slowly, we would like the prices to be stable, which means that you can predict how much it's going to be in the future. Even if CryptoKitties joins, the scalability is good enough, so the prices will remain stable. So it clearly opens many things that were not possible in the past or were too complicated. And it's up to people to build it. So that's where we are. Something that is important in the way we think and the way we approach this as well is we're strong believers in terms of security of a multi-prover approach. And we know that the multi-prover approach is something that is very complicated, but we think that it's as well very necessary. So let me explain a little bit. The idea is you can have a rollup with a single prover. And Vitalik proposed a few months ago this idea, oh, you can have a single rollup, but with multiple provers. And the point is, okay, if you have a bug in a single prover, you're not stuck anymore because you have multiple provers. So you can have a logic of a majority of provers are necessary to update the state. So a single bug does not allow anyone to break the system. This type of logic, which means that we're in a future of cooperation and in a future where there's a standard defined by the Ethereum Foundation and implemented by multiple companies like as for the layer 1 today, where you have multiple implementation, it's something that we strongly believe in. So it's a kind of key drivers for what we do. This logic, we want to do something that is good for Ethereum, we want to cooperate, and we think that we have a very good technology, and we want to show it. That's what we do. And then that's what we started. We have this testnet, as was mentioned by Declan and you. Now permissionless, as you mentioned, 350,000 addresses on it. And with a target mentioned by Declan, which is we want to go mainnet as soon as possible.
Wow.
And that's for the story and the near future.
That was amazing. I think there are a few things I want to call out that like really resonate with me. First off, like that multi-prover stuff, really exciting. I personally hate competing against my friends. I have a lot of friends working in ZK right now, and like hearing that kind of discourse about being like open source first, focusing on like multi-prover theory, as well as like ConsenSys starting this, what you say 2019, right? So like 4
Yes.
years ago, before like L2 I think even blew up. Like so forward thinking is like really exciting piece. So thank you so much for joining us. We are at your time, but I think you'll be around at the end to answer some questions as well. So I will kick you off now. Goodbye. Thank you for joining.
Goodbye.
And then I'll bring on Shane. Okay, cool. Hi, Shane. Let's
Hi.
reintroduce yourself.
Nice. I'm Shane, one of the co-founders of Hop Protocol. Been building in this space as a developer for a long, long time, doing many different things. And did a bunch of audits back in the day. We ended up building a contract-based account wallet called Ethereum, and that same team eventually turned into building Hop. And so we've been building Hop for a while now, and that's where we're at.
Okay, very cool. Yeah, so Hop was like a very key integration partner for us to get Linea off the ground. So that's kind of why I wanted to bring you here into our first community call celebration. Can you tell us the story of how Linea and Hop got together? That's a weird way of putting it, but
no. You know, I don't remember the exact beginning, but at one point, someone on the Linea team reached out and sent over their link to your bridge, and it was actually the Hop front end. You guys had forked and made work with the Linea contracts, which is incredible. We love to see people using our code and have no issues at all with this. That's the beauty of open source. And so I think we got introduced by seeing our front end working with another bridge, and so that was very cool to see. And then after that, our teams kind of got together and were discussing, and the partnerships actually worked very well. Hop is a very simple way to move assets and messages from chain to chain. And so for something like Linea, this is perfect. If you guys are onboarding many users, we like to help that, whether that's coming from Gurley to Linea or any other chain into Linea, or vice versa. And so we like to think we are very symbiotic with people like Linea. And so you guys built your bridge and then reached out about us helping facilitate users to onboard into Linea. And So we work together a little bit, and I think things are going great. I think we've seen over 200,000 different users on board from Gurley into Linea just over Hop alone. So that doesn't even count anyone else who used us or who went outside of Hop. So that's super cool. And then in terms of the origin as well, I think Declan or someone from your team actually made a proposal on the Hop governance forum, and so the Hop DAO actually approves what chains and what assets are supported on the Hop system on the Hop site. And so to add a new chain, we kind of the community requires a process, and the ConsenSys team kind of saw the Hop the addition of the Linea testnet through the entire Hop governance system. They proposed it on the forum. They engaged with the community and answered a ton of questions, and then eventually saw it onto an on-chain vote and subsequently passed. And so it was very awesome engagement to see from the Linea team engaging with the Hop community, and I think it was very beneficial for everyone involved, and everyone had a great time. And following that, Declan joined one of our community calls just like this, and so very, very good partnership so far. And we have, I think, given and also received a lot of great feedback from your team, and hope to continue doing that moving forward.
Very exciting. So you touched on this a little bit. I was hoping maybe you could elaborate kind of on Hop's community reaction now that we've gone public.
Yeah. So Hop DAO actually, I think, has one of the stronger communities. It's awesome to be involved and watch the conversations and the debates and everything. Part of being such a strong community is that there's a lot of discussions, a lot of valuable pushback and feedback when different things are proposed, and this is super valuable to avoid anything like scammy people trying to make proposals to a DAO, because there's real people there that are invested in making the DAO grow and be very successful. And so seeing I think having seen the ConsenSys brand and the Linea brand through from the beginning, and it's been months now where Linea and ConsenSys has been pretty actively engaged within the community, and it's the consistency there is super positive. I believe from the community perspective, everything that has been discussed and proposed has been very beneficial to the Hop community, but I think also to the Linea community. And so it's a very nice ecosystem where everything is working well together. And so I think from that perspective, I'm just one member of the Hop community, but I think as a whole, the Hop community has been very pleased with the direction this has gone, the engagement from everyone, and what kind of potential this has for Hop, and then also for ConsenSys, and then Ethereum more broadly, to really help scale everything around what we're doing here today.
I'm muted. No, that is very cool. I do want to mention, Linea community is super small. Well, it's not super small. It's super big. It's growing really fast right now. And I want to say, like, we're taking a lot of inspiration from how you guys have run your community moving forward. So I brought you on here. Obviously, you are from Hop. I'm going to give you an opportunity to shill something or tell us a little about what's coming up for Hop.
Hop is going well. So Hop V1, the current version that's been live for a few years now, is processed I think over $3.7 billion. Is never. I know bridge hacks are a scary thing, but we've never lost any funds to bridge hacks. We are security first. Everything we do is security in mind. In terms of audits, I mentioned we were auditors. All the founding team are all technical auditors in the past, and so nothing is done without security in the forefront, and I think our track record speaks to that. So that's super promising. Going forward, we have proposed a roadmap for Hop V2, which this includes a generalized messaging system. So very, very similar to V1, the asset bridge, but now we are introducing a more modularized messaging system that allows for not only assets to be transferred, but also messages, which kind of unlocks anything from cross-chain calls to cross-chain lending, and really anything you can kind of come up with, and all the needs around messaging. And so the Ethereum service provider to the DAO has proposed a roadmap for V2 of what we think this looks like. The DAO and the community has approved this roadmap, and so we're well underway building this. And in the future, this should unlock a lot more compatibility between different chains, including Linea, mainnet, everything else. And we can do stuff like build hop, like the hop asset bridge on top of this messaging layer, and anything else that kind of fits the messaging needs. And so hop v2 is well underway. It should be very nice as it rolls out, and that's something we're very excited about.
Very cool. So I'm gonna kick you off now. We are at 12:45, right on the dot. Wow, I've never done everything on time before. But thank you so much for joining. I am so excited to see what Hop has in the future for us. So
Thanks for having me.
goodbye, Shane. Hello, Joe. Okay, so
Hey, Emily. How's it going?
it's going well. I haven't talked to you for a while. I guess. Guys, if you don't know, Joe is my boss, but like the biggest boss at ConsenSys. But I'm so glad that you took the time out of your day to come talk about Linea and all the very cool things that we're doing.
Of course.
So I guess to start off, please introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Joe. I work at ConsenSys. I've been working at ConsenSys since the start.
Nice. Very cool. So I'll just get started. So Linea's new. We're coming out, or I guess we are out. What was the motivation behind putting resources behind this project?
So, as I just said, been around for a while. ConsenSys has been working on Ethereum roughly from the start. I certainly have, and others at ConsenSys have. The definition of Ethereum has continued to evolve as we knew it would. We had a roadmap where we anticipated charting and other things for scalability from very, very early on. And the roadmap evolved in different and unanticipatable ways, but it's looking a little bit like what we anticipated, maybe even probably a lot better actually. So from significantly before the Genesis block, ConsenSys has worked towards building secure and scalable Ethereum while making Web3. We didn't call it Web3 back then, but I like the name. We make Web3 universally useful and accessible. While we focus on building products that empower users and developers, supporting core Ethereum has always been a huge priority for ConsenSys and for our different teams. We've actually built 3 layer 1 clients since we began. We built a Haskell client a long time ago. We built the first Java client, and Besu, our current Java client, is very important in the post-merge Ethereum ecosystem. So Besu is an execution layer client. Teku is our ConsenSys layer client, and our protocol teams work tirelessly and in many ways leading the Ethereum protocol ecosystem on things like the merge and countless EIPs over the years, and many really important ones more recently. This is all why our R&D team has done so many things, including working alongside the Ethereum Foundation researchers, where we formally verify a bunch of the work done in the Ethereum ecosystem. We produce breakthrough approaches. We publish papers on formal verifiability. This is not monetizable work. This is absolutely public good work that enables us to do our best to making Ethereum strong. Formal verifiability is a critical component that we identified a long time ago. I'm proud to do it. As Ethereum shifted its focus to the roll-up customer-centric roadmap to achieve scalability. Some of our brightest R&D minds naturally gravitated to the question of L2 scalability and how it might intersect with our ongoing research around ZK technology. So in retrospect, it was obvious and it looked planned, looks planned maybe, but now we're broadly capable and deeply committed, and we saw an opportunity to make use of our expertise, and there's such a good team that they really nailed it, and they nailed it quickly.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, that's why I love working at ConsenSys. There's a lot of really cool, interesting things happening. And I guess moving on to just like talking about Linea in general, what excites you about our project?
Quite a lot. So there's a ton of innovation has been for a couple of years, really, in the ZK EVM space, maybe more than 2 years. Our friends at Starkware blazed a path for all of us. The brilliant teams at Polygon and Scroll, who are pursuing a path very similar to our path, are doing great work. ZK Sync is doing excellent work on a related but somewhat different path to what we're pursuing. All these projects are doing great work to scaling the Ethereum ecosystem. So we certainly compete with them, but we feel great affinity to these projects as well. We're not really competing with them. We're competing with the legacy centralized world, and I think we all understand that. So one thing that excites me is what ConsenSys can uniquely bring to the table for a ZK EVM technology and an ecosystem built from the technology. Our goal was not just to build an exceptional ZK EVM. We can check that already, which Nicola and team have absolutely nailed. Our goal was to make a very developer-friendly ZK EVM, one that has the backing of Infura to ensure robustness, uptime for highly scalable bursty workloads, one that works out of the box with tools like Infura, Hardhat, Foundry. One that this is critically important, one that enables all of the smart contracts that run on the network to be rigorously audited by our security audit experts at Diligence and by the auditors around the ecosystem. There is so much expertise and a bunch of tooling built up for both development and security auditing of smart contracts. And as you know, that's a big issue in our ecosystem. So we are delighted that tools like the fuzzer tool Harvey that Diligence produces and other fuzzers in the ecosystem, basically everything can be used out of the box for ZK EVM technology. It is going to be incredibly impactful that we're going to be able to make Linea easily accessible through a native integration with MetaMask. What the team has done during the private testnet is the tip of the iceberg when it comes to what's possible. We're seeing great engagement across our different product teams as the various product leaders make connections regarding what new features they're going to be able to bring to market. There's actually some magical things that you can do between an L1 and an L2 that will reduce costs for some basic activities quite significantly. And we're looking forward to bringing those capabilities using this new network, and you know, the network will enable our products to bring new features and functionality, and we'll bring all of that to Linea.
Okay, very cool. So I'm going to zoom out a bit. Joe, just in general, how do you see L2s evolving over time?
That's a big picture thing that's going on right now. For years, we at ConsenSys and many of our colleagues in our ecosystem have essentially been building the enabling layers of a paradigm shift to a world of decentralized protocols. So a lot of that is building enabling layers of infrastructure. If you look at how the web evolved, there was a lot of irrational exuberance where a lot of people. Hold on a sec. Can you stop making the noise for a sec? Thank you. Yeah, it's making some noise. No more noise. Quiet, please. Thank you. Sorry about that.
No worries.
So the web evolution was a bunch of great ideas, a lot of irrational exuberance. It led to a blow off top of the market. And really what happened there was there wasn't enough enabling infrastructure in order for pets.com and many other cool ideas, which ended up gaining traction years or decades later to be built out at that time. And so we've moved through that period. We're in a period post.com bust where we've got a bunch of enabling layers, enabling infrastructure, and we now have a lot of businesses, real businesses, essentially finding value in using the Ethereum technology. So big brands are using it a lot in the NFT space, but there's more to it than that. So it's on with the Linea technology and the tech from our collaborators and competitors in the ecosystem. We're going to see new neighborhoods develop, niches, businesses, app chains, game chains, value chains, and they're going to be growing up on layer twos. They'll see a lot of layer threes built on the layer twos, layer fours for different purposes. At least this is my thesis. And so we are now in the business build out phase of our ecosystem. And I'm super excited about that. I heard you mention before that you're a fan of the multi-prover idea. I think that's a really important next step, or there's a few next steps as L2s, L3s, L4s evolve with this technology. But we're in discussions with some of our competitor collaborators about building a multi-prover solution. Ethereum had a superpower early on, call it client diversity, client interoperability, the ability for anybody to build an Ethereum client and collaborate warmly and compete with other clients to build the best processors in the ecosystem and to build a more robust layer one. So that worked beautifully at layer one. It has worked really well at layer two, and we're hoping to see the same thing. Layer one, layer two of Ethereum, and we're hoping to see. Let me rephrase that. Execution chain and consensus chain of Ethereum, and we're hoping to see the same sort of client diversity and interoperability emerge for layer two and above. And so multi-prover can take different forms to make these layer two networks more robust. You can imagine a one of n kind of solution where the one of n provers connect the network to layer one. You can imagine majorities or unanimous prover situations where if you want something very rigorously secure.
Okay, very cool. So final question before I let you go. You kind of briefly touched over on this, but you want to add anything to where do you see Linea and ConsenSys fitting into this vision of L2s over time?
Yeah, so it's not just L2s. Ethereum is constantly evolving. The protocol is modularizing into major modules, execution, consensus, data availability. All of those modules are sub-modularizing. So the execution space, the data availability space is going to be ripe for so much innovation. So I do anticipate that our Linea technology will undergird multiple layer 2s over time, and that layer 3, layer 4, etc. Elements will grow up in those different ecosystems. So, we've been an infrastructure company from the start. It certainly wouldn't make any sense for us not to continue to be an infrastructure company. The protocol is evolving, and the supporting infrastructure needs to evolve, and so we consider building out layer 2, layer 3, and above to be core to what we do. We'll need to do the same with the different flavors of data availability that we're going to need to see in our ecosystem. We're going to need some very inexpensive data availability and some perhaps more expensive and very rigorous guaranteed data availability. We also intend to make Linea our home network in a sense. We have some exciting ideas for sort of similar to how Coinbase has recently indicated that they're intending the base network to be the home base, for a bunch of the different things that they offer. We're going to treat Linea as the home on which we launch many important ConsenSys initiatives going forward.
Okay. Very cool. No, this is super helpful. Thank you so much for sharing all of your insights.
Thank you. Are you going to throw me out like you throw everybody else?
Well, I get fired if I throw you out.
Never.
Okay, awesome. Oh, never. Okay, guys, you know what that means.
You heard that.
Everybody heard that. So I will gently
Thanks, Emily.
escort you out. Goodbye. Okay, JT, you're on. So I think we've covered kind of all things Linea, history, what it's about, how we differentiate ourselves. Can you tell us about what's up next for our users and testers and Linea community?
Yeah, absolutely. So want to share just some of our current thinking about ways to get all of you all involved, this team in shaping and testing the network over the next few weeks and months while we're still in testnet. So as Joe mentioned, we're in the early stages of building what we hope will become an important layer 2 for the Ethereum ecosystem. But like the research that underpins the ZK EVM itself, nothing in our space really is built in a vacuum. So as we prepare Linea for mainnet later this year, Nicolas and team are going to be doing a lot of the technical validation, the security audits that they mentioned earlier on the call. But we also need help. We need help stressing the network and testing a variety of activities. And so we're exploring the possibility of launching a sort of quest-like challenge, something that would set out some on-chain activities and technical tasks that we need to perform sort of validation on at scale. So we're in talks with Galaxy about instrumenting a challenge. We're meeting with a few NFT designers about creating a set of NFTs that early testers could qualify for. And obviously, we're fortunate to have some really great early partners like Hop that are interested in participating as well. So we're working on final details, nothing firm to share at this point, but it is something we'd like to launch in the coming weeks. And we see it as an opportunity to invite this community and the broader Web3 community to participate in this project of scaling Ethereum and doing it at the protocol layer. While we're still in testnet, while we still have the ability to break things, it's a chance for us to harden our technical approach while giving all the early users an opportunity to learn about Linea hands-on and get a firsthand look at what our great partners are building on ZK EVM. So stay tuned for more on that. We'll be providing updates on Twitter and linea.mirror.xyz, our Mirror blog. So make sure you go and follow us on those channels if you're not already.
Okay, very cool. One last question, because I flipped the order. JT, please introduce yourself.
Hey, everyone. My name is JT, and I lead marketing for Linea, among other things at ConsenSys.
Okay, very cool. So I'm going to wrap up and leave some time for questions. We are over time, so I'm not going to answer that many questions. But goodbye, JT. Let me quickly share my screen for some relevant links and ways to get involved. Here we go. Cool. So lastly, kind of things that, like, as JT had mentioned, we have various ways for users to get involved. We also have various ways for our devs to get involved. So keep out an eye for Git POAPs. If you guys aren't familiar with that, Git POAP is a project that rewards open source contributions with on-chain, I guess, POAPs. So repos that you can access is our docs repo. We've opened up a tab for community tutorials. So that's been really exciting. We've seen a huge growth in just like organic educational content. And so we have put a place here on our docs website for you to share that. So just create a PR. I'll be reviewing that. Tag me, blast us on Twitter. We'll get that through. Open source ZK glossary. You can kind of think this as like my personal notebook of like, I have no idea what I'm learning about. So I'm just going to log all of that publicly. So there's that too. As for our award-winning prover technology as well, we have two open source repos, Gnark and Gnark Crypto. One last thing I want to mention, if you want to meet, I guess I'll be the only person from Linea representing, but ETH Global Tokyo. So this will be April 14th through the 16th. Linea is offering $7,500 in prizes. Essentially, we just want you to build on Linea, like build the dApp that will, I guess, onboard the most users. You can kind of think of it. And we'll do things like feature you on our ecosystem portal, bring you on to a call, just generally celebrate our builders from Tokyo. So here's a list of links that are relevant for everyone. Please screenshot this because I'm going to switch over to questions now. So I'll give you, I guess, 5 seconds to, if you're on Mac, it's Command-Shift-4, and then you can open it up. Otherwise, all of this stuff is going to be on linea.build. Cool. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen. I'm going to bring everyone on board. I guess feel free to popcorn answer or not. But I think I'm just going to siphon through. There's a few on Crowdcast. But if you want like the most up-to-date live chat, it's going to be go to our YouTube page or LinkedIn. Starting from the top, okay, we did talk about ZK EVM differentiators, which is actually the most popular question. Okay, this is spicy. I don't know if I should ask this, but the question is ZK EVM landscape is tough. There's a lot of competitors. We've talked about better together. I think this person's asking specifically about, do we have a plan for how do we grow Linea, I guess, in this competitive space?
Marco, do you want to take that? I mean, my sense is that the growth of any of these networks, but in particular our approach with Linea, is going to be from the ground up, right? You have to create value for builders, and for partners like Hop. So I think the value of calls like this, of the feedback mechanisms that we have in Discord, to be able to take feedback during that back into the product is super important. But ultimately, it's going to be, our network is going to grow on the basis of great partners like Hop and the value that they create. Marco, I don't know if you have other thoughts.
Yeah, thank you very much, JT. Hello, everybody. Just to intro myself, I'm Marco, and I'm leading the growth of the Linea network. So this question is very in line to what I'm currently doing and engaging with. So yes, the ZK-VM space seems to be crowded. Actually, if we look better into details, we just have 3 ZK-VM technology out there, namely Scroll, Polygon ZK-VM, and Linea, that are moving towards a Type 2. There are many projects that are trying to come out with Type 2 or even Type 1 ZK-VM. We will welcome that on the space because we strongly believe that the client diversity is key for developing the Ethereum ecosystem. So as of now, it seems that these three zkEVM networks are competing each other somehow. Coming back to the point that Joe stressed before about the multi-prover, we strongly believe that there will be a future where we are not going to compete anymore, and everybody of us will be necessary to create a really reliable and important layer 2 scaling solution for Ethereum. And then we will see a lot of layer 3 build on top, so we can discuss about which stack specific they will this layer 3 will adopt among the different tech stack that we will see. But actually, we are doing our best pursuing our value proposition, that is the zero switching cost and a system that has low to zero barrier for users, thanks to partners like Shane and Hop, and also thanks to the MetaMask full integration. And we believe it's a fair value proposition that we're going to offer. But yeah, our vision of the future is the multi-prover, definitely.
Yeah, so there will be competition going forward. Competition is good and healthy, makes us all better. But the decentralized protocol future will be all about better ways to collaborate much more often. I am grateful that we have competitor collaborators in our ecosystem. We're gonna all need to do our best work in order to handle all the volume that comes into our ecosystem. I think the major headwinds that we're facing are global macro headwinds. The world is cracking up, and we all need to build the infrastructure that can enable the world to build itself out again, rebuild itself perhaps on sounder foundations. Forever, whenever engineers have been given some sort of capacity, whether it's CPU or screen real estate or memory, they max it out. And so we are in no danger of not seeing our systems maxed out quite soon as we bring in more and more capacity.
And to just add one more thing, as an external party to Linea, as part of what Hop does, we interact with every one of these chains, all of your collaborators and competitors. And so we do build and understand each of these systems. You guys have mentioned it many times, but Linea has been one of the, if not the easiest to integrate with because of the compatibility. And so it was as easy as just changing the RPC endpoint, more or less. And so we do respect that a lot, and would like to offer that as feedback. And then even the team has been awesome with feedback. I asked Marco a question not 1 hour ago, and he already answered it on this call. So the feedback mechanism, the feedback loop, and then the building has been impressive from a third-party perspective, for sure.
Okay, very cool. So a lot of questions I think have already been answered in the call as well. This one's kind of interesting. So what's his name? Hubert is asking, basically, there's been a lot of innovation, right? Especially with Linea as well. Where do you guys see safety playing a role in kind of how we build?
That's really a tough one. I can take the first part, and then as a layer 2, 100% the safety will be related to securing user funds. There will be many angles to that. For sure, one of the angles will be the audit. We will go through a strict audit process to be sure that all circuits that we're going to build are in line with the EVM specification, and this will reassure everybody that when we publish a proof on the layer 1, it will be verified by all Ethereum validators, so we will be able to inherit the same security of the Ethereum layer 1. That is pretty a lot, honestly. Then, of course, there will be a lot of discussion around more application level security and safety. So we will try to push forward all the curated experience initiative that we are currently running with MetaMask, and Linea will be a good part of it. So we will try to even improve safety of end user at application level.
Yeah, ConsenSys is already always quite rigorous about security of the elements of our products. And the ZK EVM approach in its compatibility brings sort of security for free in a sense, because we can rely on all the tooling, all the expert auditors in our ecosystem that already work well.
Okay, cool. We are 15 minutes over time, so I will leave it at that. If there are additional questions, people know where to find us. Discord, Twitter. I'll share the screen actually again, just with all of the relevant information. Oh, I want to mention Infura recently released a pretty comprehensive developer's guide. So if you are building, check it out. There should be nothing different because we are EVM equivalent. But yeah, thank you so much, everyone joining, our guest speakers today, our attendees. Thanks for bearing with like technical difficulties. I intentionally make live streams difficult and cause problems in the middle. So you know that this is real. It's like proof. But yeah, everybody have a happy Monday. Otherwise, no, today's Tuesday. Happy Tuesday. Happy Wednesday for those of you in APAC. And happy rest of your life. Okay, bye.
Thanks, folks.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah.
Thanks,